What time is it? It's time for another Every Other Wednesday.
We are the four amigos.
Wow, you sing better than I thought you did.
That was a
Sanjay.
great way to
Hey,
answer
we're
the
all
game.
here too, all four of us. Imagine, and now people are starting to come in. Other people. So welcome,
I feel
everybody.
like I'm half here.
Come on in. Oh yeah, Mike feels like he's half here because
No,
well,
this
I'll let
side.
you. I'll let HIPAA laws will not allow.
I'm just back from the
happened.
dentist. I'm gonna try to talk normal.
You
Have you?
on your speech?
Why start now?
Why start now? Oh, the shots start. Oh, I can't say that. The shots start early.
Who's got a
Take a
good
drink of-
tongue twister for Mike? You know what I actually
there
think
you go.
the worst tongue twister is toy boat. Try doing that.
Toy boat.
Toy boat. Sure, say
The
it
whole
10 times
band
quickly.
is back together. Brian, welcome. Good to see
Yes,
you
thank
again.
you, Brian.
Mike, take a drink of water. I want to see.
Big thumbs down.
You wanted to drool out of my mouth, don't you? Yeah. I'm not falling for that trick.
This is already falling for it.
Welcome, everybody.
Yeah.
Richard, what's the question of the day?
Hey, hello, everyone. Welcome. Yes, we do have a question for today. And here's it. I am curious to know, what one thing are you absolutely determined to accomplish before the end of the calendar year? What are you determined to accomplish before the end of the year? And
you
Sanjay?
can't say celebrate the new year because technically you can't celebrate it till next year. So that's just doesn't work.
Okay. Sanjay, you have a reminder for our friends?
I have a reminder for our friends and even our enemies and everyone in between. If your chat box defaults to just the panelists and the host, please change it so to everyone so that we can all see what people have to share. Stephen Rayfield is going to enjoy his Christmas.
Good.
Woot woot.
Okay, we got to have more. And that's great, Stephen. Thank you. All right. Carol's
Clean
going to
my
clean up
sink.
your sink. Well, you'll probably do better than I will in that regard, Carol.
I want a photo of this sink now.
Before
Yeah.
and after.
Yeah, there you go. Getting his son through college app process.
Oh.
Yes.
That
Okay.
sounds-
If you,
It's
have
you
any
and me
pointers,
both, buddy. Me and you both.
if you have any pointers for Sanjay, I know he'll be happy to.
Self-publish a
Self-publish a
children's
children's
book.
book.
Oh,
Excellent.
that sounds fascinating.
Yeah.
And
I wanna know the
maybe
title.
Jeff, you could read it on your own.
Oh, thanks.
Connie's going to finish her HR procedures manual. Good. What I'm determined to do is to get my accounting, my books ready to do my taxes right after the first of the year, rather than what I always do for no necessary reason, and that is wait until the very last minute. But that I've decided this year I'm going to be all ready so that I can send it off.
I say that every year.
This might shock you, but mine are always ready to go.
It doesn't shock me a bit.
Oh,
Does not shock me a bit.
I want to finish my online course I've been doing for a year and a half. So
Do you
What's
think you'll
the course
pass it?
about, Jeff? What's the course? Tell us.
the course is on communication skills.
Well, all right.
Oh,
Yeah.
So maybe
I'm
you'll
gonna
get
say so
something.
myself, but it's 54 videos, so it's
well, as they say, I'm surprised Sanjay didn't jump on this, so I'm going to say it. As they say, what we most need to learn. we
Yes,
teach them.
yes. And Carol, your point is absolutely right. That's why I've made this decision because final tax deadline for individuals was yesterday. Okay.
Jennifer,
Start our
start
show.
exercising. Oh, that's something I've committed to try to do too.
Hey, wait! I actually bought a home gym that's sitting in my basement, ready, waiting to be put together. So I figured that was exercise getting it to the basement.
Yeah. Okay.
You're good for the year.
Let's
Okay,
get started,
so-
gentlemen, shall we?
Yeah, let's do that. So first order of business, did you already show the date card? Today is October the 16th. Welcome, everyone. And Jeff, no, let's see. Mike, since you haven't been with us for the last few times, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself first?
And
Am I new here
give us
now?
a note.
It's Michael Kerr here, coming to you from Canmore, Alberta. I just got back from a wonderful trip to Bali, where I was speaking in Bali and Singapore. So I'm glad to be back. I speak on workplace culture, and you're probably wondering about the days. The theme days today is as follows. It is official department store day, Info and Misinformation Overload Day, Support Your Local Chamber of Commerce Day, Global Cat Day, Thank Your Cleaner Day, Dictionary Day, World Food Day, and yes, it is Bosses Day. So if you haven't said thank you to your boss, please do so.
Yeah. So guys,
Sanjay, tell us about yourself.
My name is Sanjay Nath. I am a speaker and author focusing on leadership and performance. I'm based in Canada, just outside of Toronto in Oakville, Ontario. And yeah, what day is it today? It's Brush Your Teeth Day. That's all I got. That's all I got. Jeff, talk to us.
you know, every day is information overload day in the States, Mike. So
Misinformation overload.
misinformation, yeah, overload.
Between now and the election, for sure.
Yeah, exactly. We got a few more days. Hi, everyone. Jeff Tobe, normally coming to you from beautiful downtown Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, but today I am in Idaho Falls at a speaking engagement, and I am going to play hooky this afternoon right after this and drive over to Teton National Park and do some hiking. It's a beautiful area up here. I speak about customer experience, customer service, including leadership and communication. Richard, back to you.
Well, hello, everyone. My name is Richard Haddon, and I'm in Jacksonville, Florida, where I live. And I am an author and speaker, and I speak about employee engagement, retention, and recruitment. And I'm delighted to see all four of us here today so that we can talk about something that we've all been curious about for some time. And Mike, I'm going to let you tell the group what that is.
Yeah, today we are, oh my God, I'm going to try and sound normal. Today, for those of you joining late, my mouth is a little frozen. I am fresh back from the dentist, if you were curious. We are going to talk about...
From where?
The dentist.
Yeah, when you said you just gotten back from an exciting, I thought you were going to say from an exciting trip to the dentist.
Yeah.
Yes.
We are going to talk about curiosity, all things curiosity, why curiosity matters in the workplace, why it matters from a leadership perspective, why it matters from an employee perspective, why it is a key value, I think, or key trait that is needed in a really effective, inspiring workplace culture, and how we can build a culture of curiosity, because we think it's just that important. And so we're curious to hear your ideas and questions and comments about curiosity.
I'm curious, Mike. Can you say, I was born on a pirate ship, but do this with your mouth?
No, I can't. Bite me. Bite. I'm gonna say what the dentist said to me for the last hour and a half. Bite me. So let's start, gentlemen. Let's start, gentlemen, with the why question. Why should we take curiosity seriously? Why does curiosity matter so much? Why is it so important? Jeff, I see your hand raised.
Thank you. That's the new thing, right? Raise our hands. You know what? I gotta say what's obvious, and that is that curiosity leads to creativity. And I've been saying it for years that when I speak to a group about being more creative in business, I'm always saying the first step is you need to make your people more curious. And I changed that. Let me give a caveat, because I don't think it's about them making people curious. I think they should be hiring more curious people. I think that it should be something that's, like you said, is part of their values, part of their culture, understood by everybody. Because to me, creativity leads to innovation. So it's curiosity leads to creativity, creativity leads to innovation. And if that's true, then why aren't we looking for people who are naturally curious? I know we'll talk a little later about examples, but that's my initial reaction.
You know what? I want to jump in and say, you're saying we should hire for curiosity. I don't think we need to build or create or hire for curiosity. I think everyone intuitively is curious. I mean, babies come out and they're fascinated. I think we need to do is foster an environment that promotes it. But I think people inherently are curious. We want to know. I think when we stop showing curiosity, we just shut parts of our lives off. So when we look at, I don't know, someone dressed a different way or doing some sort of cultural something that we're not used to, the natural instinct is to go, why are you doing that? Tell me about that. But we're socialized into saying, don't ask, don't pay attention. And then we kind of tunnel vision and we put our heads down. Like when you go into a big city, no one makes eye contact. But when you go into a rural area, people say hi, they're walking their dog. How are you today? How's the weather, et cetera, et cetera. So I think it's not a matter of trying to create it. It's a matter of it's already there. How do we water it, fertilize it, and help it grow?
I'm going to respectfully disagree with you on that. I have met many people who I think are shockingly curious about their jobs, about
Incurious.
life, about hearing other people's perspectives in this
Okay, but-
politically
Well, I
divisive
think-
climate, for example.
Yeah, no, I agree, but I agree with both of you, even though you're disagreeing with each other. I think you come out curious, but I think an awful lot of people have that curiosity somehow taken away from. And to me, the opposite of curious is arrogant. And you think about people who, no, I don't need to know that. I have everything that I need. I have all the knowledge that I need, and they're just not curious. They come off arrogant to me.
Rich,
Well,
yesterday in the class I was teaching, we had half of them were nuclear physicists, right? And I got to tell you something, even though they're incredibly
Wait, I have to stop you right there. So you were teaching a class on nuclear physics? Wow,
that's me. Exactly. Yeah. But what I was going to say is these people were incredibly brilliant, incredibly curious about their area of focus, but so blinded that they couldn't step back and look at the big.
Yes.
So maybe it is both.
It's exactly. First of all, I agree with Richard. I think we inherently come out curious, and then it's zapped out of us, like creativity. And I think, though, that even though it's zapped out of us, it's zapped out of certain areas. Because if you're a human being, you have curiosity. You may not care about your work or your coworker's child or whatever, but maybe you love football and you're curious about football. So the idea is everyone has the curiosity gene. We just may not have it in all areas. We may not care about, ooh, what spices in this food. We may care more about, how do I do this particular part of my job and then leave me alone. So I think curiosity is always there. We just have to learn how to foster it and encourage it in different areas to help people grow their scope of curiosity.
For sure. And before we get to that, though, let's not lose the thread. We're talking about why curiosity matters. So let's try and rifle off all the reasons why we think curiosity matters. And I want to jump on something Richard said too. You said the opposite of curiosity is arrogance, right? Ignorance. Or overconfidence. I think another opposite of curiosity is apathy, right? Where we
you're right. Yeah.
One of my red flags of dysfunction in a team is the complete absence of healthy conflict. When there's no debate, there's no healthy conflict in meetings at all.
No passion.
Because that can reflect a lot of things, including a fear of speaking up, including a lack of psychological safety, but it can also indicate just plain apathy where people just don't care about their business, about their customers, about their work, about other people's work. And that is one of the most dangerous places I think a business can be, when our employees just don't care about what's going on in our company.
And if they don't care, then they don't have a curiosity about how things can improve, because they really don't care whether they improve or not.
Right. So the flip side of that is, and another reason to take this so importantly, is curiosity is connected to, I think, happiness and engagement in the workplace. Curious employees tend to be more engaged. And if we want engaged employees, let's create those conditions where they are allowed to be curious and challenged to be curious. Yeah.
And
so when you say allowed to be curious, the first thing that makes me think of is kind of having a culture that says it's okay to ask questions, even if you think others know the answer. So I think a lot of people might be curious, but they are reserved to ask the question because, number one, they think it might be a stupid question, or they're afraid to acknowledge that they don't know everything. And so I think if we foster an environment, if we foster a culture in which, it's okay. I mean, don't ask the same questions 4 times because it means you weren't paying attention. But it's okay to ask questions, and we should all be able to ask questions, and we shouldn't be making judgments about people based on the questions that they ask.
The other thing too is
Brian says healthy conflict. Yes. And I think that's part of being curious is it can create healthy conflict in an organization. Sorry, Sanjay.
I was going to say that the idea of being curious often shows vulnerability. And in, I think it's Patrick Lencioni's book, Getting Naked, he talks about that being an extremely desirable leadership trait. That, if you don't know what the acronym stands for, kind of put up your hand and go, I'm sorry, what does that stand for? Right. And showing that, and the other thing too, I was reading something semi-recently that said that generally speaking, more intelligent people aren't afraid to say they don't know something.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because they go, yeah, I don't know that. It's not my expertise. Can you share that? And that's a genuine source of curiosity. I had no idea. That how you fix the car? Tell me about that. Pop the hood. Let's go. So
and Sanjay, just that idea too, especially coming from a leader, of saying, hey, I'm not like, I don't want you to be defensive. I'm not questioning how you're doing things. I am genuinely curious to learn
Really
more
want
about
to know.
your
Yeah.
job. And Sanjay, your example reminded me, I think it's the book called Let Them Surf. It's a great leadership book, and it talks about a commander on a ship, and he talked about always making it a point to ask stupid questions in meetings, to be the first person as the commanding officer to ask sometimes really stupid questions, to make it safe for other people to ask questions.
So
wow, I do that without even making a point of it. Yeah.
So when I was involved with the camp many moons ago, we used to have these things at the end of the camping day called feeling checks. And feeling checks was kind of like, what's going on with you now? And the problem is these are adolescent kids, like 16 to 18-year-olds, 16 to 20-year-olds that don't really know their own circadian rhythms and when they should be going to bed, and they want to stay up late. And some of these meetings would start at 11 p.m. And if the feeling checks went nuts, we wouldn't go to bed till 3 a.m. And it was just nutty. And you actually, people were passing out and getting overtired and all this. So when I took over the meetings, one of the things I made sure, because sometimes we could get the feelings checked, how are you feeling right now? You know what? I feel good. I'm looking forward to playing soccer tomorrow. Boom. And then other people would go, well, today during the session, it reminded me when I was 4 and my father left, and it got me into, and then they go on and they give their whole life history. And what I found was, it's kind of a group think kind of concept, was whoever set the table, whoever went first, set the table for everyone else. So when I took over, I made sure the first 2 or 3 people that I called on for a feeling check were able to do them in 12 seconds or less. And it set the table for everyone else doing it. So it's kind of to what you were saying there, that curiosity point of, if you set the table, or if you ask a stupid question, you then break down the edge, especially if the person's in a position of leadership, maybe not formal leadership, but they're revered by their peers or subordinates or whomever, and they ask a stupid question, people feel safe and kind of go, he asked it, I can ask it too.
Yeah,
Cool.
that's awesome. Have we exhausted all the reasons why curiosity matters, though?
Well, I think
I don't know. I'm moving on, but I want to move back. I want to go back to something that Connie said, which is really important and may lead us to something new. And that is, even if it's not in your area, but you want to continue to learn about your company. This group yesterday has a program called GIGS. I don't even know, it was an acronym. I don't know what it stands for, but you can make short-term lateral moves in your organization to basically anything you want if you're qualified, because they're very technical. But if you're qualified and they have a project they're working on that you want to work on, you can go work on it for 4 months, 6 months, and come back. And it struck me as that's curiosity, even though they're not calling it that, right? If you're curious about other areas, and maybe it's for career growth. I don't know how they consider it, but it's a great concept, to learn more about what your company does. Is be curious about what other people do, so you can put the whole picture together instead of being so myopic and doing your job.
Well, yeah, or job swap days or job shadowing
That's
days,
what it is, yeah.
right, where they learn different aspects of the company.
And then the cross training, it becomes so important, especially if you look at someone like working on a factory line, and I'm supposed to put the widgets on the thingy, and they put the widgets on the thingy, but they're not doing it right. Well, if you ship them down the line and they appreciate how the widgets needs to go on the thingy because they have that different perspective, it completely opens it up. And so rather than yelling at them going, do it, feed their sense of curiosity going, let me explain to you why we got to do it that way.
So I'm going to disagree with one thing you just said. It's a pet peeve of mine. You said cross-training. You're not training them for the job. It's cross-education.
It's a cross-awareness. Yeah.
Right?
There is such a thing as cross-training, but that's not it.
No, absolutely.
Yeah. When you're running a marathon, I've cross-trained.
Okay. But I want to help. I want to finish answering Mike's question.
Thank you.
Why do we need it? Why do we want it? Well, I think it builds a learning organization, right? Because curiosity leads to learning, and there's an awful lot of stuff we can learn. There's so much we don't even know that we don't know. And if we're curious, then we're going to end up with more of it than if we're not. But Mike, you and I were talking yesterday a little bit about this and about being curious is, is engagement and curiosity go together. And I think we said that it's not so much about making people curious and therefore getting engagement as it is, as you alluded to a little bit earlier, let's make sure that we have people with the potential to be curious, because that's a pretty good indication that they're not apathetic, that they do care, and therefore they can be engaged.
I also think it's a whole body experience. And we've talked about this time and time again about how we can't just expect people to show up and be linear minded workers. And the idea of curiosity, again, I think it's an intuitive thing that we are all born with. And if we try to squash it out of people or expect them not to ask questions or, behave like good little soldiers, you're not getting the full experience of who they are. So I think that actually invites them to be more open and be more committed to the job.
So two things as well. Thanks, Sanjay, for that. Two things as well to just play off of Richard's comment on a learning organization. I think not just learning about your company, but learning about, and this is the connection to me to customer experience, customer service and customer experience. If you're curious about your customers, then you're going to ask a lot of questions. You're going to get to know your customers better. You're going to constantly be wondering, how can we do a little bit better? How can we do things a little bit different? I wonder what my customers really, really want. I wonder what would make them really, really happy, and having that perpetual curiosity about how
and the opposite of that is the opposite of I wonder what we can do to make our customers even love us even more is, I hope they love us enough already, because that's all they're getting.
Because that's all
You're talking about AT&T, is that it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Hey, we got a couple of we've got some really good comments in the comments. This is where comments tend to be, is in the comments in the chat. Fritz says, I like Ed Shine's work on humble inquiry. Well, I like it. You had me at Ed Shine, because for me, he's the person who defines organizational culture. Humble inquiry, putting aside what I think I know to be willing to learn from others, which I think is great.
Are Ed Shine and Ed Sheeran the same? Or
no, Ed Shine actually sang better than Ed Sheeran. And then and Rob also talks about when we're talking about not cross training, but understanding what other people do. What was it Rob said? Yeah, job rotation. Was knowing the 15 steps it takes to generate a check in finance helps quash the why does it take so long gripe. And it also, if we're really in a learning organization, it might help the people who are getting the checks to understand, why do we have 15 steps for this? I wonder if we could all help each other by minimizing the number of steps. But if we don't know there's 15 steps because we never asked, we wouldn't know that.
Hey, so Richard, that reminds me of, I talk sometimes about new employee syndrome, I call it, where this idea, and this is where we have to be careful, are we nurturing curiosity right out of the gate or squashing it with our new employees? Because I'm sure almost every new employee into a company, and by new, I don't mean young, I just mean they're new to the company. They probably have this moment where they stop in their tracks in the first day, maybe the first week, and they think to themselves, why do they do it this way? 15 steps? Really? Like, this seems a little excessive. But what do they do? 9 times out of 10, they probably keep that thought to themselves, right? I'm not going to say anything because I'm the new guy. So I'll just keep that to myself, because they must know what they're doing.
That's the premise of the, what's it called? The 90-day something, that your best resource are those people who have worked with you for less than 90 days. And unless you harvest or leverage that resource, you're losing all kinds of, new ways of doing things.
So to tie into Michael's question, the only way you're going to tie into that resource, the only way you're going to leverage that first 90 days is you create a culture that's curious and it's safe for people to be curious. So people can then say, why are you doing it that way? Or in my last organization, we did this. Could we somehow replicate that? Would that be helpful and advantageous in bringing the organization forward?
Right. So, and hey, on the why question, one last reason why I think curiosity is really important is it can really help us manage our conflict and be less stressful. If we when you're in a conflict situation with a colleague, with your boss, if you can train your brain to take a more curious approach, to take a step back before you lose it, before you insult the person or judge the situation or judge the person, to just take a step back and calmly be curious about the situation. Why are they acting like this? I think there's something more going on beneath the iceberg here, and start just asking questions of the person instead of immediately jumping to conclusions.
Yeah,
I think that's incredibly powerful when it comes to maintaining healthier relationships and managing conflict.
I want to ramble something that I've rambled on many times in live programs. This idea of you saying jumping to a conclusion, and I have a big problem with when people jump to conclusions. It's actually much harder to undo our jump. It's a game I used to play with kids that I used to say, hey, in 5 seconds or less, you have to empty as much toothpaste out of the toothpaste container as you can. Go. And they go, and they have a great time. I go, great. Now you have 2 minutes to put as much back as you to put it back in. And then the debrief is, sometimes we say things, they come out really easily, but to undo them is really difficult. And so and now I completely lost my train of thought because you said something that sparked that.
That's okay. I like that idea. I'm going to use it. So
No, that's a great. I love the concept. That's a great idea.
Anyways, so curiosity, putting stuff out there. I don't know.
Anyway, I'm going back to what Michael said. Michael, you said something about customer experience, and of course, I know a little bit about that. So I got to go back to that because yes, it's about being curious about our customers. That's great, but I think it's also it's a great exercise you can do at the beginning of your weekly meeting, whatever frequency you have, and that's a curiosity minute or share. So one of the things that I worked with an insurance company out of Florida with a huge insurance company, many branches, and they always had this curiosity share. So it was almost like a safety share for large technical organizations often have, but it was a curiosity. So before they start their meeting, they'd say, who has something to a curiosity share? And they defined it as something that they saw in somewhere else outside of the insurance business that we could think about using inside our organization or outside of our company. Often it had to do with restaurants, that they loved and about the experience that they had. How could we take that and use it? So curiosity is much more than being, internally focused on our customer, which is great. I think it has to go there, but also externally focused. And how aware are people now of, they go to buy a pair of shoes online, they're talking about that experience or something, and somebody always had something to share before the meeting, which I thought was just a great exercise for customer experience.
I love that, Jeff, and that's a great segue into diving into more of the how. So how do we build a culture of curiosity? We've touched on it already in a few ways. That's a great simple example that anyone can do. Richard brought up the idea of questioning, right? Building that culture where it's safe to ask questions. I think it's Hershey's I talk about in my book. Don't quote me because I haven't read it in a while.
Did you ghostwrite it? Or you actually wrote it?
But they talk about an award, the Exalted Order of the Extended Neck Award, which goes to any employee who speaks up and asks a really challenging, awkward question of senior management. And they do that reward, of course, to help create safety and to encourage people to ask any and all questions and to get across that idea that there are no stupid questions. So what else can we do to build a culture of questioning, a culture of curiosity? What do you got?
Well, I don't know if this answers this directly, but I'm just looking at some of the things in the chat. I'm thinking about, Rob is talking about somebody he refers to as the mole in the hole, which is just somebody who just kind of keeps their, I guess, I'm assuming this is what you mean, Rob, somebody who just kind of keeps their head down and does the job without a lot of questioning. I mean, I think you can take questioning too far, but there's actively questioning. And then there's just being open to learning something that you didn't already know. And I sometimes get really frustrated with people. I probably do this myself too, but I get frustrated with others whom I see who just feel like they have all the answers to something. And there's a lot in this world and outside this world that we don't have answers to. And I think it's just better to say, we don't know about that yet. We're open to finding out. So I think when people at work are just open to the possibility that there may be something more than they understand, I think that their behavior changes in a whole different way. A few years ago, there was a prominent politician. He's not someone we're talking about in the news these days, but I remember someone describing him as being incurious. That his primary fault, it was not a character flaw. It wasn't an integrity issue. It was just that he was not curious. And it was the first time I'd really thought about that in this context that we're talking about today. And that helped me to see that person in a, I think, more accurate light. I think there are people who just are open to things and others who are not.
I think that as always, whenever there's sort of a change behavior, the best way to do is lead by example. So you have prominent people that show curiosity, and it doesn't necessarily have to be, look at me, I'm being curious, but just legitimately having curiosity, having curious, a curious mindset. And to what you were saying earlier, Michael, is then we recognize it and we give attention to it and we make an award, or maybe it's at every meeting, it's like, who had the most curious, thought-provoking question? And that person gets a coffee or whatever it is. But I think what we want to do is we want to establish that behavior and then recognize and reward the behavior and say that this is the expectation. This is what we want. Like anything else, we want people to be courteous. That's how we create a family of courtesy, or a culture of courtesy, is we are curious and then we identify it and we recognize it, we reward it.
Yeah, and I think you kind of touched on this, I think, but being more implicit about just telling people, yeah, we do pay you to think around here.
Yeah.
Don't care what job you're in. We pay you to think around here. We want to hear your ideas.
Yeah.
On that note too of Jeff's, what was it called? The Curiosity Minute? Curiosity Moment? Curiosity Share. I love that. That made me think of a couple of clients of mine who have curiosity scavenger hunts that they do a couple times a year. And they go out, they get a small budget, teams go out into their community, and they literally just, with no real agenda, they just go out and they go into different businesses, they take photos, they look at signs, they go in and experience just different customer service experiences, and then they come back and they report back the questions that arose, the ideas that they found. So it is literally just kind of like this idea/curiosity scavenger hunt. Let's just go.
You and I have talked a lot about field trips on this show, Mike.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it is, right? I mean, it's a field trip with a purpose.
Yeah.
It's not just going out because we were going to go out, but there is a purpose in the debrief. And how can we use those concepts in our organization?
Totally, right? Yeah.
I was part of a focus group years ago. It's got to be 20, 25 years ago. That was, they were trying to roll a gum, Trident, or I don't remember what gum it was.
This in your preschool or what?
Yeah, exactly. So one of the things that they did before we got going was they wanted us to get it in the headspace. And so to make us curious is they gave us a scavenger hunt, and we had to go to these parts of the city. This is where their demographic, their target demographic would hang out. We had to go to these record stores and we had to find and get a picture with this thing. And again, just the idea of getting you in the space of curiosity. And that way you can make better decisions. You're making more informed decisions because you have the right headspace.
Yeah, I'll just share with that quickly. We were talking about field trips. I went to a conference once in Minneapolis, and what's it called? Mall of America. They have they have a scavenger hunt that they set up. And it was very cool because you got a clue. And then when you finally found the store where it was leading to, they gave you the next clue instead of having a list, And it was interesting because you ended up going into these businesses that loved the fact that you were coming into their business on a Tuesday morning, and possibly buying something. But there's so many ways to I thought that was brilliant. Again, just on your point, Sanjay, of setting us up for what was to come in the conference. And it was a great bonding experience too.
Stephen asked the question, how do you measure curiosity?
So
I don't know, can you measure it? I think you can observe. I know you can observe it.
Yeah.
I don't know. What about measuring it? What metrics would we use?
So as you guys know, I was stupid enough that I've started a doctorate, and we are doing a course right now, and they talk about this whole course is based on something called the 4 frames. And the 4 frames of any organization are, frame 1 is your structural frame. So who reports to who? What does your diagram look like? Frame 2 is the HR frame. And this is about the people and motivating them and keeping them excited. Frame 3 is the political frame. So when you have competing interests, you know, the employees want to get more money, the top level wants to pay them less money. How do you navigate that? And then frame 4 is they call the symbolic frame. And the symbolic frame is a lot of theater. And they talk about organizational culture within that frame. And they specifically talk about that going, it's not something you really measure, it's something you feel. And there is not a curiosity barometer that, you know, like you've got a 9.4. It is something you see, but through observation, you will notice things. You'll kind of go, hey, I notice that when someone does something crazy, rather than being shunned, people are actually approaching them going, what the heck are you doing and why? Because they're trying to understand. So although we may not have a metric, we can look at certain behaviors and go, okay, based on how people are interacting and how the bee colony is hiving, we're moving in the direction that shows more curiosity, that shows more openness, that shows psychological safety.
So,
I think
Sanjay, on that note, maybe rather than a hard measure, a list of indicators that could be red flags that we're becoming less curious as an organization, as a team, and green flags indicating we're moving in the right direction. Like what would green flags be?
I'll tell you, this is one that I've used for years. When I'm going to speak at an event, especially if it's right after a meal, I want to go see how people are interacting during that meal. Are people laughing? Or are they kind of muttering and keeping to themselves? Is there hugging? Is there you can smell the energy in the room, and so I would say that's the more curious an organization is, the greater the communication. So the more interactivity you have, the more laughs you have, the more banter you have, the more camaraderie you have.
I think it's also, you can measure it almost by a spectrum. So, you know, on one end of the spectrum is not being curious, and the other end is being curious. You can ask people, where do you fall? Or 1 to 10, you know, where do you fall? And then ask them again after you've done initiatives to increase curiosity in the organization. It wouldn't, you know, I don't know if you want to put a number to it, but somewhere just, you know, put a dot on the line between, you know, not being curious and being curious, whatever it is.
Don't you think most people would say that they were curious, even if they're not?
Yeah, you're right.
I'm curious as to why you would say that, Richard.
By the way,
just
Sanjay,
observation.
It didn't go unnoticed that you said you're doing your doctorate in what?
In business administration.
So when you're done,
we're going to have to call him Dr. Sanjay.
2.
Oh, please, no, no.
Woot, woot.
Oh.
And 2, are you even gonna be on this show anymore?
I'm going to be using you guys as for social experiments and biological ones as well.
And 3, are you going to raise your fees?
Of course, that's the whole reason you're doing it. Duh.
So anyway, sorry, I got us off track.
Steven says collect feedback from team members about their colleagues' curiosity. Now that's interesting. Yeah, I think you've hit on something, because it would be everybody pretty well would say that they were very curious. But I think if you were to ask me how curious is Jeff or Sanjay or Mike, I would have something to say.
Hey, Richard, how curious are Mike and Sanjay and Jeff?
You know, I think they're actually pretty curious.
We're pretty curious.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't say peculiar. I said curious. I know.
I love that concept, and I think you're bang on, Richard, because it is one of those traits where people want to feel like, of course I'm curious.
Well, look what Rob.
Of course, I have a good sense of humor, right?
Yeah.
Same thing. Yeah, Rob says, you know, it's a question not dissimilar to, are you compensated sufficiently? Rarely will anybody say you're paying me too much, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
I want you to know, though, for every other Wednesday, you guys are paying me too much. So
we are. We've talked about it.
Yeah.
We talked about a fee decrease fee. So, believe it or not, we are starting to wrap up. So where do we go, Mike?
Where do we go? Well, how are we doing for time? What do we have?
We got about 5 minutes or so.
Well, we got a few minutes. Yeah.
Here. You know, I think we could talk. We've hit on it a little bit, but I think we really should go a little bit more into why is curiosity so much a good leadership trait? I mean, I don't think it's an argument, but I mean, I think it's a good trait in anybody. Why is it maybe more important, more necessary for a leader? And maybe another way to ask that question is, why is an organization more vulnerable if they are led by people who are not curious?
I just wanted to throw a smart ass remark in there, but I was going to
Okay.
say something like it's not very good for the cats.
Okay,
Right.
don't get us started with cats.
Okay, and especially since this is what, International Cat
It's
Day or
Global
something?
Cat Day. He's
Global
he's
Cat.
trying to.
Way to
nice
go, you guys!
callback,
You
Sunday.
tasteless schmucks! You talking about things that kill cats on Cat Day.
Can I also ask Rob what a buggy whip is? I don't know what that is. Is it my age? But anyway, I
It
think,
may be your hemisphere.
okay.
Let's answer poor Richard's question here.
Richard, I
It's
think
an
that
important question.
it leaves a company vulnerable because vulnerable to competition, right? Because the company that is curious as a whole is going to hugely surpass a company that is not curious and
Well, sure.
you know,
And again, I think that's because of the creativity effect. I think
yeah.
Well, and
curiosity
probably,
breeds creativity in others.
but not just that. I mean, these things overlap, of course, and they're all connected. But I think too, a lack of curiosity probably ties into greater complacency and happiness, satisfied with the status quo, right? Which is an incredibly dangerous place to be.
Yeah.
Because you're not curious. You're not curious about your company enough to grow it, to be innovative or creative.
Yeah.
But I think for all the reasons we've talked about, Richard, to answer your question, I think it matters because curious leaders are going to be better leaders in terms of leading their people because they're more curious about the humans behind the job titles. And they're going to want to connect with them better and learn about their goals and their dreams and their aspirations and their fears and make those personal connections so that they can be a stronger leader and know what motivates them and what demotivates them.
Yeah.
And I'll bring it back down to the numbers. The lack of curiosity sets you up to be reactive. Being curious is a proactive approach. So, pardon me, as an organization, if we can be more proactive, we can anticipate changes coming down. We're going to save money. We're going to, increase profits. We're going to reduce turnover. We're going to increase retention, all that stuff. So, and it really comes down to kind of going, why did this happen? Why did you do that? Why are customers asking this? Why are our competitors doing that? And to be able to be curious will increase your bottom line.
Well, and two, I think if you're a leader and you're curious, and somebody said it earlier, I think it requires vulnerability because you're going to ask a lot of questions as a leader.
Well, and you have to acknowledge that you don't know everything.
You don't know.
You're imperfect in some way.
That's going to help make you more approachable, and it's going to build psychological safety. But we also know curious leaders, I suspect, are far more open, or they realize the importance of this, of sharing more information with their team, with their employees. And as an example of this, because this is a huge thing we haven't really touched on that ties into curiosity, Zingerman's Roadhouse restaurant in Ann Arbor, Michigan. They're one of these businesses that practices an open book policy so that every employee there, doesn't matter whether you're a busboy or a server or the hostess or whoever, the dishwasher, everybody knows almost everything about the company, including the nitty-gritty of the finances, how the company is run, what everything costs, how much money they bring in. And because of that, everybody in their positions is, I think, naturally more curious about the business just because they're more aware. They're more aware of how the business operates, and they're more open to ideas, and not just ideas that affect their own job. They're always thinking of ideas. Hey, this could really help you guys in the back here.
And you contrast that to Enron. Enron was notorious for keeping the books tight. You could not
from
get
everybody.
From everybody.
You're absolutely right. Another company, a generation before the Roadhouse, it was a company called Springfield Remanufacturing, and Jack Stack was the CEO, and he kind of pioneered this idea of open book leadership. And one of the things that I took from that was, he said, unless people know how you make your money, they can't help you make your money.
Yeah. Well said. Hey, that's a great line.
I want to just refer way back, and I apologize. I don't know if your name is Cheryl Ann or if it's just Cheryl, and Ann I could be a last name. I'm not sure, but
Cheryl Ann.
But Cheryl Ann said, being curious can help develop people. So that curious leader, I think, we've missed that piece too, that there's that professional development piece. You can offer your people opportunities for professional development, whatever that means, to your organization, and they don't take it, and they don't take you up on it. why, there's something there. So being
Mhm.
curious yourself kind of gets other people curious about other things outside of their normal job. So thank you for
Well,
that.
I think it also says that if you're going to be curious, you have to be open to what it takes to satisfy that curiosity.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yes, and so the numbers man is pointing to his watch again. Let me see your watch, Sunshade. What do you? Oh, okay.
You are wearing a
Yours
watch.
is round, mine is square, whatever. Okay.
Well,
Like
guys,
our
listen,
personalities.
so good session. When do we do the next one?
I
Probably
believe
2 weeks.
October
it's 2
the
weeks from
30th,
now.
Halloween Eve.
And I believe, and you guys don't know this, that we have a guest host that day. I'll tell you
Excellent.
more about it. It hasn't been confirmed yet, so I don't want to say any
Yeah.
more.
Yeah, tell me more about it since I'm the one that has to promote it. Yeah.
It is October 30th, and
Yeah.
who's coming?
Not I.
Oh no,
I'll be there.
I think
I'll
I'm
be there
think.
too. Yeah, good. Any closing comments? We kind of finished abruptly. I apologize.
Yeah,
but-
well, 145 kind of comes on its own time.
Yeah, I
Exactly.
blame Mike when in doubt.
Yeah,
Just blame Mike.
Exactly. So my question, Richard, is when will we see everybody?
Every other Wednesday, and I can't wait.
All right, guys.
Thanks, folks.
See everybody.
Cheers,
Bye.
you all.
Be curious.
Stay curious.